Hi everybody, FortunePayback here with another YouTube exclusive video. Was doing some thinking and I decided, the series playthroughs I've been doing and looking to do in the future are starting to become kind of like a staple and something that I wanted to, really continue. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do tier lists for them. So I'm going back and I'm doing that for Splinter Cell. This was a game, as of this recording, that I did a few years ago. So I'm kind of operating on memory here. It was one of the first like full series playthroughs that I actually did that we streamed. But I guess without further ado, the way I'm kind of putting these tier lists is just in order from most to least enjoyable. Um, Taking some things into account, and in the description I'm going to put my how does it holds up for all of them if you want to hear a little bit more detail. But I guess going in order from uh, and how I played. The very first Splinter Cell. I'm trying to think about the future here just a little bit. I think I'm comfortable putting. I don't know. We might change this later, but I think I'm gonna keep it in A for now. That might change here, but I guess we'll find out. The first game, from what I remember, oh man, it's an experience, and that's both a good. I bet I think maybe I am more comfortable putting it in B tier. Yeah, because from what I remember of playing the first Splinter Cell, it was very uh I don't want to say simple because it was a bit complex, but I think in comparison to the other Splinter Cell games we'll be getting in the future, it is pretty simple of a game. Um Stealth action redefined for sure, but it's very bare bones. You have your detection meter for visibility. You sneak around, you hit the bad guys. It just works. The story I remember being very good. It's probably the one story that stuck with me the most, besides maybe Pandora Tomorrow. Talk about that in a second. But yeah, it was a very good game from what I remember. And if I were to go back and replay any of these, it'd probably be the first two. But speaking of Pandora Tomorrow, that's going in S tier, baby. That game has stuck with me the entire years later. It is the one that has been most memorable. I remember it being the most fun for me. There was actually, not to say that this one wasn't challenging, but Pandora Tomorrow was that much more challenging, and I think it made the stealth mechanics a lot more fun. And in terms of stealth mechanics, they actually gave you a lot more tools to work with. Um, Kind of let you figure out how to approach a situation. Now, there were a decent amount of tools in the first game, but you never really. They gave you what you needed. Pandora Tomorrow, they gave you a lot more to work with to try and figure out how you wanted to approach a situation. Like I said, with the difficulty and then, oh my god, the story on top of it. That story stuck with me. And yeah, incredibly good game. And the soundtrack too, by the way. I can't hum a single tune from the first game. This one, I have it's all stuck in my head. I love this game to pieces. Moving on to Chaos Theory. I think it's only fair. I probably put it in between the two. To be honest, I didn't really care much for Chaos Theory. Kind of overall, at least in the grand scheme of things. Chaos Theory, it was good. I enjoyed the humor of it, I guess you would say. How you had a lot more interactions with interrogating bad guys. I do enjoy the more serious tone of the first two games. Chaos Theory, they kind of shifted a different direction that was could be kind of seen here and there throughout Tom Clancy titles in the future. But overall, the gameplay didn't really change much, I think. And that's kind of why I would put it down here. Story, it was good. There were a few things that were memorable to me. Overall, it's enjoyable. I think the main thing for me with Chaos Theory is kind of like how Pandora Tomorrow, they gave you more tools to deal with situations. Chaos Theory was kind of the opposite, where they gave you too many tools and not enough situations, so in a sense, I remember feeling overpowered a little bit. Like I had a tool to deal with literally everything all the time, and it was almost too easy of a game. I'm just trying to think a little bit here. How mad would people be if I actually put it here? Because I think the more I think about it, it might actually be a little bit more like this. I'll kind of ponder it. We'll come back to that. Splinter Cell Double Agent. It kind of cropped weird here. There were two different versions of this game, which was kind of weird. So the first version, they were also backwards. So version 1 actually came out on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. It was a bit, or no, yes. Yep, nope, sorry, I got that right. Came out on the Xbox 360 and PS3. Was a little bit more similar to Chaos Theory in a way. Um, but with the polish of what would be Conviction. Trying to think. That game was probably a C tier for me. Yeah. The more I think about it, they kind of get jumbled. Honestly, version 2 kind of overrides a lot of what I knew from version 1. Version 1 was not great. I don't remember having a lot of fun with it. The whole, man, the mechanics of the game were just, and it wasn't, trying to, how do I articulate this? The game wasn't as, it wasn't very Splinter Cell. You weren't really doing a whole lot of sneaking around. It felt more like it wanted to be a different game than it actually was. If that kind of makes sense. I kind of go into detail in my other video. I probably explained a lot better because to make those videos, I had freshly played this, so this is going off of a couple years of remembrance. But overall, version 1, I remember just being um, not very great. One of the big things that stuck with me when I remember version 1 is how kind of inconsistent a lot of the AI mechanics were, and that made the game very, very frustrating. It wasn't difficult because the game was difficult. The game was actually very easy, and we played on the hardest difficulty. The problem was that, if you would to do one thing and go by perfectly fine, you fail later down the line, have to restart, you would do the exact same thing, and then all of a sudden, you were, like, detected. Stuff like that. It was just overall very inconsistent, made it a very kind of frustrating experience. That being said, version 2, which was the one that came out on the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox, I'm going to put in B tier because it was substantially better than version 1. Version 2 was a lot more Splinter Cell. There was actually stealthing around, and kind of like the past two games, you had the tools that you needed to deal with the things. You didn't feel like you had too much. You didn't have the extra BS of version 1. Um, I guess to touch on the whole gimmick around Double Agent is that, you had your missions, but then you also had the bad guy hideout that you were kind of being a double agent around. And there was a lot of nonsense in there. And in the first game, it was by far my least favorite parts of the game. It was not fun. Version 2, they did a different approach where you would go do, your normal level. You would be Sam Fisher. But then you would come back in the headquarters and it would give you another, like, actual Splinter Cell mission. You were actually stealthing around and it was fun. And every time you came back, it was like in between levels, there was something else going on. You kind of got to know the complex a little bit, and but they threw different situations at you. So you kind of had to fine tune your approach. It made the game a heck of a lot more enjoyable, especially with, you know what, I actually might bump this, I think. Yeah. You know what, kind of thinking about it, Chaos Theory might just be on par with those two. They all kind of have their differences. I don't want to say that the first one was bad, but maybe it would be. You know what, I'm happy with that. But anyways, moving on to Conviction, that's an easy D tier for me, by far. That game was bad. I don't know who pitched the idea. There was next to no stealth. Nearly the entire game was daytime. Running and gunning. I mean, first of all, the game was only like 4 hours, and we played on the hardest difficulty. Not a challenge, even a little bit. And was quite frankly, the story was really good. But if I wanted a good story, I'd go read a book. That's what I feel like Conviction was. Is that if I were to choose to make a video game or write a book, Conviction should have just been a book. They probably would have had a little bit better, imagination and execution, because it was not really a Splinter Cell game. Uh, I'm sure Past Me has a lot more to say about it, so you can check out that video, but no, I don't. The game was not memorable even a little bit. Splinter Cell Blacklist. I know I'm gonna upset probably a lot of people, but when I went to go back to play Blacklist, I think I'm gonna put it in absolutely. And here's the reason why. Splinter Cell Blacklist, I know a lot of people don't like to even think about or consider as a Splinter Cell game. I know it's kind of unfortunate we didn't get Michael Ironside to come back as Sam Fisher. The gameplay carries this game to an extent, and the rest of it is carried by the story. I think the story was incredible. I loved the villains. They were just awesome. But the main thing that I loved about Blacklist is kind of like you could really just fine tune your kit. The amount of just freedom you have. If you know me, I really enjoy player agency. Being able to, swap out your armors, your stealth suits, whatever. Well, I guess a little bit of both. Really customize and fine tune your loadout for whatever situation you're going to try to approach. The different goggles that you had made things really interesting, but they still had all the semblance of Splinter Cell. Of past, you could still be super stealthy, and the way that they had a lot of the missions kind of put out, you really what's this? Sorry, pop up, go away. But you could really choose how to approach everything. They had the little side missions that were in between, so you could get more gear, which I think was a lot of fun. It was just more Splinter Cell, and it was really cool. It was just kind of like it threw you into a level, go figure it out. I think it was really, really good. Um, I think the only reason I put it in an A versus an S is because it felt a lot more fast paced. That was really it. You could run through the game like a maniac without too much penalty. If you wanted a much more, kind of force yourself to be stealthy, you'd have to bump up the difficulty a lot more, which we did play on the hardest difficulty, and it definitely made it substantially more difficult. But at that point, it was about being as careful as you could rather than actually focusing on being stealthy. As long as you just did things right, I mean, put it this way, you were able to abuse a lot of mechanics. Um, and that kind of took away from the experience just a little. Overall, Blacklist was great. One that I have gone back to many times over the years to actually play again. Probably the Splinter Cell I've played the most, to be honest. But yeah, I think looking at this whole thing, that I'm happy with that. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you.